Bed. Okay, so if you want to check this show out with video and audio, you can go to either alphamediausa.com or alphamedia.com, excuse me. You can go to my Facebook page, which is at AM 1400 KVFD. YouTube channel is there as well. Wait a minute, my YouTube channel isn't there. So don't go to YouTube. And you can go to my personal Facebook page, which is Michael Devine. But really the best way to go is to go to my regular Facebook page, which again is at AM 1400 KVFD. Anyway, it was great to have Pastor Hill on again in the last segment. I was going to have Rob Jones, but I haven't seen Rob yet. Rob is our news and sports director, and I hope Rob shows up, but if he doesn't, he doesn't. Rob is from a little town in South Carolina, and he's great at sports, I'll tell you. He's the best sports announcer and the best sports authority we've had over there in the news and sports department in the 12 years I've been here easily. And I wanted to talk to him about the Clemson-Ohio State game because Ohio State just stomped on Clemson. You know, I had to think about it because Ohio State, after all, is in the Big Ten, and I'm a Big Ten guy. But I just couldn't bring myself to root for Ohio State. I just couldn't do it. Goes back to Woody Hayes. You know, Woody Hayes and Forrest Evashevski hated each other. Now, for you younger folk, Forrest Evashevski was the athletic director down at the University of Iowa the last time the Hawkeyes won the Rose Bowl, and that was in the late 1950s. Now, apparently, as the story goes, there was a meeting of coaches and athletic directors. And during the meeting, apparently something was said or something got Woody Hayes mad, something that Evashevski had said, and he took off after him during the meeting and was going to duke him out. Now, I'll tell you, Forrest Evashevski was a pretty good-sized guy, but Woody Hayes was a big boy. He was a big guy. And it wouldn't have been good for Forrest if Woody had got a hold of it. But, yeah, I don't know if that's where it started from or what. But Woody never seemed to like Iowa, so I disliked him back growing up. And, of course, he was doing quite well at Ohio State during the 10 years war with Michigan. And, of course, who did we have in those years as coach of University of Iowa? We had Jerry Burns, who went on to coach for the Minnesota Vikings, Ray Nagel, Frank Lauterbaugh, all those guys. Poor old Bob Cummings. Oh, gosh. Poor old Bob Cummings. You know, the students were just terrible to him. They'd set dog doo-doo or human waste on fire on his front step in the middle of the night. I mean, just really terrible. Of course, he didn't help himself. I mean, he was headed for an 0-11 season. And who did he have as his quarterback? Well, his own son, of course. Here's a text from Rob Jones. Okay. Well, Rob's not going to be able to show up right away. Maybe we can get him on a little bit later because, you know, he's, again, a Clemson guy, and he just really hates Ohio State. And he's got a keen insight into sports. He's kind of like Nevin Mulholland and Randy Koeman. He's more of a basketball guy. You'd have thought that he would have been a real big football guy coming from South Carolina. Since and I hate to say this, I'm not a big fan of Dabo, by the way, but I got to admit he's done a heck of a job with that Clemson program. Other than that, he's kind of a pain in the neck. But Ryan Day stepped right in for Ohio State, right where Urban Meyer left off. I'm not a huge fan of Urban Meyer, but I got to give respect where respect is due. Urban Meyer deserves respect. He's won national championships with two different teams. He came to Ohio State when they were in a little bit of trouble and never skipped a beat. He had that team run. God, when was it? 5 years ago? They had a third-string quarterback in a national championship game with Oregon and won the game. God almighty. How do you do that? Start a third-string quarterback. Was that 5 years ago? I think it was the 2015 national championship. And to listen to Urban Meyer is an experience in itself. And because he's he's a student of the game. He really is. And Kirk Ferentz falls into cliches, but Urban Meyer, if you ask him a question, he's very direct. I mean, he may not carry on for several minutes just to hear himself talk, but he doesn't fall into cliches or, Kirk's response to a lot of things. Well, it's definitely something we don't want to see, blah, blah, blah. We're going to have to look at it in the locker room or back in, we're going to have to check out the video of it, on and on and on. Urban will say, that guy screwed up, not in a sharp tone or anything like I just used, but that's what Urban will do. Again, you can go to alphamedia.com to catch a video of this broadcast, or you can go to my Facebook page, not J Mike anymore, but it's AM 1400 KVFD, AM 1400 KVFD, if you'd like to see as well as hear what goes on in this program. If we can get Rob in here a little bit later on, it'll be great again to catch his insight into the Ohio State-Alabama game. Well, it looks like he's texting me as I speak, and it looks like he's not going to make it. There's a news story coming up, and I don't know what it is exactly, but Rob says it's important, so I believe him absolutely. Rob's, again, I think he's the sharpest guy we've had since Jerry Sheeter was in his prime here. Then, of course, we have the newsroom. There's a name for the newsroom now, and it's the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, out of respect for our old colleague and longtime buddy, Jerry Sheeter. Jerry was here in the 60s and 70s, and he knew what was happening in Fort Dodge backwards and forwards. And he was a good guy, and he lived a good life. A lot of people thought he was gruff and all those things. He was the softest hearted old teddy bear you ever saw in your life. He really was. Well, anyway, enough of that. I don't know what Donald Trump thinks he's doing. He got on the phone with the Secretary of State of Georgia, who's a Republican, and tried to convince that Secretary of State to overturn the results of the Georgia election for president. That's, I've always tried to stick up for Trump, because I tell you, those who blistered him all the time, they didn't seem to understand, or didn't care, even worse, what they were doing to the country. And I made the same observations when Barack Obama was the president. Some of it, they always want, Obama's defenders always wanted to say it was about race, and in some cases it was. There's pinheaded rednecks out there. I mean, you can't deny it. But most of all, it was against Obama and his policies and his executive orders. And I still can't believe the court, when Trump made an executive order overturning Obama's executive order, which Obama said he knew he didn't have the constitutional authority to do in the first place, the Supreme Court steps forward to say, well, President Trump, you have to have a good reason to overturn this unconstitutional executive order. We really don't have much to say about our own lives when it comes to the justices of the Supreme Court, do we? I mean, President Obama was regaled because he was a constitutional scholar. And I think that's very important. But when a constitutional scholar says he has no authority to do something and he does it anyway, and the Supreme Court, in response to another executive order from another president, said, well, you can't overturn an illegal executive order because you need a good reason to overturn the illegal executive order. And I'm talking about the DACA decision, by the way. President Obama, really without authority, instituted that policy, the DACA policy, and Trump wanted to overturn it. I wanted him to overturn it. If we're going to, I don't believe in open borders, which Joe Biden apparently does. So we're not going to have, we're going to have a president of the United States who arrogantly dismisses our laws and advocates for open borders, not really knowing what's going to happen. Biden is kind of an old, foolish man anymore. There's a lot of things about Joe Biden that I admire. but arrogance isn't one of them. And I know. All presidents are megalomaniacs. They all think the country can't go along without them. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. And Trump needs to understand that, by the way. Donald Trump needs to understand we don't need him. I mean, there are people who are Trump supporters, and they are Trump supporters, by the way. They're not supporters of the country. They are Trump supporters. I'm someone who supports the country. I pushed back on those who attacked President Obama because it wasn't always in the best interest of the country. Rush Limbaugh, who was a great entertainer, but he made no apologies for saying that he hoped Obama would fail because Obama was a socialist, and we certainly can't have one of Rush Limbaugh's pet ideas, the free market, be wrong. So no matter what happened in the country, Rush was advocating for Obama to fail. No, I wouldn't do that. And I won't advocate, and I did not and would not advocate for Donald Trump to fail. But now we're talking about what's good for the country. Is it good for the country? And I mentioned the Secretary of State in Georgia, and his state has counted the votes twice. They've counted them once, and then to make sure they went back and had a real thorough recount. And the recount and the first count indicated that Joe Biden won the state of Georgia by 11,700 and some votes. And Trump refuses to accept that. Well, that's too bad. Trump has been heard to say, well, I just can't let this go. Well, it's not yours. Can't let it go. What, the presidency of the United States? It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to us. And I could say the same to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. The country doesn't belong to you at all. It's ours. We get to say what happens in our country. At least that's the idea. The Supreme Courts, both at the state and federal level, have taken that idea away from us. They keep finding different things in the Constitution that finding different things in the Constitution that nobody knew were there. Penumbras emanating from the Constitution. That's oh, there's a fundamental idea of freedom in the 14th Amendment, so we must legalize abortion immediately because it's in the Constitution. No, it isn't. Gay marriage is not in the Constitution. None of those things are in the Constitution. Those are just peculiarities of a certain group of lawyers who believe they're the social drivers of society. They are unanswerable to voters, and they'll make whatever law they want to make. And by golly, they've been largely successful in doing just that. That can't be. That just cannot be. We cannot call ourselves free people with that sort of government. We cannot have people who ignore us like Pelosi and Schumer. We can't have people who deny reality to stay in office like Donald Trump. And we can't have an unaccountable star chamber of attorneys who will make law because they think that their ideas are best. I mean, there's no reason to it. There's no debate to it. They're just going to make the rule. They're going to make the rule. By the way, in regard to the Varnum decision, there was a book by Tom Witowski, formerly of the Des Moines Register, that came out a few years ago. It's published by the University of Iowa Press, and it's called Equal Before the Law, and it's a thorough history. It's a thorough history of the Varnum decision. Now, I would urge you to read the book to show you how law is really made. It's not a scholarly and thoughtful discussion among the justices about the law and Constitution. In the case of Varnum, it was a group of people led really by the late Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Mark Cady, to legalize gay marriage in Iowa. That was it. They didn't depend on the Constitution. Not at all. There was apparently an African-American woman who got a law license in Iowa in the 1800s that Justice Cady hung his hat on, and the rest of the Supreme Court in Iowa went along with that, of course. But there was really no constitutional authority to do what the Iowa Supreme Court did, or what the U.S. Supreme Court did. I can never remember the name Leffengeiler or something. That's the name of the decision that the U.S. Supreme Court used when they legalized gay marriage across the country. So we have gay marriage, and most of the people in our country accept it now, and that's fine with me. But the way it was done was unconstitutional and an affront to democracy. And that's something to be concerned about. And, you know, the attitude now is, as long as we get our way, as long as we can fool the rubes, as long as we can give them an order and they keep taking that kind of guff from us, we're going to keep giving them that kind of guff. That just can't be. We can't take this crap off a bunch of elected officials, and we can't take this kind of nonsense from judges either. Judges are law school graduates. Come on, man. No disrespect to the legal profession, but come on, man. What are we even talking about? We're talking about elitist rule of our country. We're talking about our vote not meaning anything. If there's one way we can change our lives, it's through the vote. And that's been taken from us, I'm afraid.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
It's 3:29. The news is next.
Listen to this radio station on the radio.com app anytime, anywhere. Listen to more than 300 stations along with more than 3,000 podcasts.